I'm going to do our post reading and their main idea. So they're just different ways to do the same thing. Is talk about what was the entire text about. You can also do this along the way. So like every couple pages stop and do one of these techniques. But these are just after you've read the book or chapter for older kids. And so I'm going to start with get the gist. And so get the gist is really shrinking the main ideas or main idea of a paragraph or a page or a story into a concise statement. And in get the gist, so get the gist, we want to summarize in a sentence that is 10 words or less, and that's tricky. So we'll watch the video next week, but you want to focus on who or what did what. So you have a subject or a topic, and what did that subject or topic do? In 10 words or less, it's real tricky. A lot of times you ask kids, what was it about? And they regurgitate the entire text, or they so much detail, you can't get them focused enough on the central theme or topic. So it's the who or what did what in 10 words or less, and that's called get the gist. And so what you might do is after you've read, pretend we've read Wilma Unlimited, which is about an Olympic athlete who overcame polio, is I'd say, okay, now we read this book, and I want to stop, and I'm going to think aloud about who was in it, since it's fiction. Historical kind of fiction. There was a who, and what did she do? And I'm going to try to do that 10 words or less. Let's see if I can do it, because I'm going to ask you to do the same thing, third graders. So I would say, Wilma overcame polio and became a famous Olympic athlete. 9 words, so I did it. You've got to model this. With all of these strategies, you have to do lots and lots of modeling. And then you make it a game. So you can say, who wants to try it? And even if they repeat exactly what you just said, at least they're internalizing what you just did. So if they say, Wilma was an Olympic athlete and overcame polio, or it's real similar, you say, great, good job. Who else wants to try it? You're scaffolding. So in Get the Gist, you can use it with fiction or nonfiction, and I'll model more next week. So 10 words or less for that paragraph or page or the entire story, and I'll get questions at the very end. So Get the Gist is a main idea strategy to stop and make a concise statement, and if it's a little more than 10 words, that's okay too. So get the gist, model it, practice it, and then have them apply it in their own reading, like during reading groups and stuff. It's a good one to use during read aloud. And make it a game. Okay, another strategy you can do is called read, cover, retell. So you can model it during your read aloud. So you can do it during reading too. So as you read a page, I might read this page about how Wilma was sick, and then I say, okay, I'm going to read about as much as my hand can cover. I'm going to make my hand real big. And then I read it, and then I cover it, and I try to retell what I just read. So it's called read, cover, retell. I'm going to read about as much as my hand can cover. I'm going to read it, I'm going to cover it, I'm going to retell it to myself or a neighbor. So that's a good one to do too, to stop and again chunk the text and retell what happened. You can see that's kind of like get the gist, it's just a little different. You don't have a word limit, and it's more general. Okay, so that's read, cover, retell, and it's a good one to model. And story star, so any kind of little gimmick you can use to make concrete the key elements of a story is really good, and I'll tell you what's on here. So we have who was in the story, where did the story take place, what did you think of the story, so that's personal opinion, what were the most important things that happened. Here's where we really get on the key ideas, main events. So what were the most important things that happened is one part of our story star. And then, was there a problem? What was it? How was it solved? We're touching on some key points of the story in our story star. And so it's something that kids can have, and they touch it. It's concrete. It's hands-on, right? And it's something you can do regularly with a story after you've read a story. So with Wilma Unlimited, we talk about all of these things maybe after we've read the entire story. It's just a good routine. You can also do the hand, right? Talk to the hand. So you can say, I have the main idea in my hand. And it's just a variation on this. So in this main idea hand, and they can trace their hands and write these words, you have the who. So you may want to do a little hand or just remember Who did what, where, when, and why. And we call those the 5 W's. They're actually over here as well. That's another related strategy. You can see how these are all variations, right? Who did what, where, when, and why. I did this with 3rd grade, and they took them months to get this. This isn't something they get right away. And what we would do is while we were lining up for lunch, I'd say, what are the 5 parts of the main idea? Who, and they'd chant, who did what, where, when, why. We practiced it all the time until they got it. And so actually on their tax test, they had to, after they read a story, pit who did what, where, when, why. So it was something they carried into the, have you seen that? It's something they carried into their testing, which is a part of our lives as teachers in Texas, right? Okay, so that's the STAR, read, cover, retell. Let's go over here. You can also just have in your pocket chart these key elements, and they are looking at them during your reading group, read aloud, what have you, and just kind of, talk about who was in this story and what was she like. Don't limit it just to her name. Do some analysis. What kind of person was Wilma? And they might say hardworking, etc. And then after you've talked about it, then you get to move it over to the right side. Did what? What did she do? There's a lot to talk about with this one. Where was it? That's very literal. If there's multiple places, talk about those. There's not always just one place. When did it happen? Now some kids may not get it. This happened a while ago, so you may have to revisit the text, and that's great. And just go, you know what, I couldn't remember either. So let's go revisit the text and find out when it happened. And then why is always tricky. You might just say, why did Wilma become a champion? Just kind of make up a why question. That part gets a little tricky. So to summarize a story, just go through the 5 WH questions. And you can do the pocket chart, you can do the hand. Another way to do it is just focusing on the first 2, who did what or what did what. So it just depends on you and what you want to do. These are all ways to do main idea after you've read. So, and vary it, try this and then try that. Just give kids different ways to do it, because some kids that doesn't work for them. And other kids like the hands-on tactile. So, okay, that's kind of it for our video.